General Motors is dropping electric van production at its plant near London, Ontario. The automaker says decreased demand has pushed it to stop making the Bright Drop electric delivery van.
Stellantis left. GM shut the lights off. Cross-border travel dropped by more than a third. And almost nobody has connected what those numbers really mean. Canada is quietly rewriting its relationship with the U.S. auto industry. And by the time most people notice, the shift will already be locked in. For decades, Canada treated its auto integration with the United States as almost a law of nature. Parts built in Ontario, assemblies in Michigan or Ohio, trucks and sedans crossing the border so often that the line between Canadian-built and American-built blurred into meaninglessness. It wasn't perfect, but it was stable, predictable. So predictable that most people assumed it would last forever. That assumption is gone. What's happening now isn't a shouting match. It's something colder, more deliberate. Canada isn't staging a trade war. It's doing something far more unsettling to Washington. Stepping back, creating distance, treating what used to be automatic as optional, quietly asking a question it never really asked out loud before. Is this partnership still worth it on these terms? The turning point wasn't one speech or one headline. It was a series of choices that, taken together, changed the direction of the relationship. The United States, under a revived America First mindset, began rolling out tariffs framed as protection against foreign competition. On paper, the targets were global. In practice, Canada got caught in the blast first. Components built in Ontario and Quebec, once treated as North American, suddenly looked different on U.S. spreadsheets. They weren't just parts anymore. They were foreign inputs supposedly threatening American jobs. A country that had spent decades as the most dependable partner was recast as a risk. Canada did respond with tariffs of its own, but not in the way Washington expected. There was no dramatic escalation, no theatrical threat. Instead, Ottawa changed the operating system. It tightened tariff-free access for U.S. automakers. It tied benefits to verified investment on Canadian soil. It rewrote the conditions for duty-free treatment. It didn't scream. It adjusted forms, rules, and thresholds. The kind of moves that don't dominate front pages, but quietly reset the rules while most people are distracted. Trust, once broken, doesn't get restored with slogans. It has to be rebuilt on different foundations. Canada stopped assuming that U.S. policy would automatically align with Canadian interests and started planning for a world where it might not. Think about how you'd react if a longtime partner suddenly treated you as a threat. You might lash out, you might plead, or you might do what Canada is doing now. Step back, take stock, and start building alternatives so you're never trapped again. That choice, the choice to build options instead of just arguments, is exactly what's unfolding. And the fallout has already hit the ground. Stellantis, one of the largest automakers on the planet, shifted production out of Ontario and into Illinois. GM ended electric van manufacturing in Ontario entirely. Jobs evaporated. Towns like Windsor and Brampton, where auto work isn't just a paycheck, but part of local identity, suddenly had to question what the next decade would look like. The feeling on the ground wasn't outrage. It was something quieter, heavier, a recognition that the safety net people assumed was there. The permanent flow of U.S.-centered auto production wasn't guaranteed anymore. Across the border, American factories began feeling the tremors too. Supply chains that once moved with near frictionless efficiency started experiencing delays and higher costs. Tariff rules and policy changes created uncertainty about where to invest, where to source, and how to plan more than a year ahead. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce warned that this version of protectionism was actually slowing factory activity in the Midwest, the very region the tariffs were supposed to shield. That's the irony no one in the political arena wants to dwell on. Policies sold as a way to protect American workers ended up adding costs for American consumers and destabilizing the manufacturing base they were meant to defend. But this isn't just about blame, it's about fragility. In a deeply integrated industry, there is no such thing as a one-sided disruption. If you hit your partner's supply chain, you hit your own. Canada's answer to all of this hasn't been dramatic retaliation. It's been something more strategic. Instead of trying to win a tariff-for-tariff fight, Ottawa started redesigning its industrial position so it doesn't have to depend on any single market including the United States. New investments in domestic manufacturing, long-term commitments to build out energy infrastructure, a serious push into critical minerals, the backbone of EVs, batteries, aerospace, and advanced military technology. Canada locked in more than 24 mineral and supply chain partnerships with a group of allied countries, spreading risk and deepening ties outside the U.S. orbit. Not because Canada wants isolation, but because it wants insurance. That's what strategic independence looks like. Not running away from the global economy, but refusing to be trapped by it. You can see this new posture in small, easy-to-miss details. In October 2025, Ottawa released an industrial plan that to most casual observers looked like just another government document. But inside, the emphasis was clear. Canadian leadership would rest on domestic strength and resilience, not on the assumption that cross-border cooperation would always function the way it used to. A few months earlier, Canada launched an industrial policy dialogue with the European Union, a structured framework for collaboration that does not require U.S. approval. The 2025 federal budget went further, elevating critical minerals and energy from simple export categories to pillars of national capacity and sovereignty. Figures like Mark Carney have started to personify this shift, not with fiery speeches, but with calm repetition. Cooperation is not automatic. Access is not an entitlement. If Canada is going to be anyone's partner, stability, mutual benefit, and respect are baseline requirements, not bonuses. For Washington, that's an uncomfortable adjustment. For decades, the U.S. treated certain forms of leverage, tariffs, market access, defense ties, as tools it could deploy without much pushback from neighbors. Now, those tools are running into hard limits. Canadians are traveling less to the United States, buying more at home, rethinking brand loyalty. Car trips across the border fell by roughly 35% in September 2025 compared to the previous year. Canadian provinces pulled U.S. spirits from store shelves. In Ontario, U.S. spirit sales plunged by around 80% after removal. That wasn't a government diktat on what to drink. That was a combination of policy, sentiment, and consumer choice lining up in the same direction. This is what it looks like when trust erodes not only between institutions, but between people and a relationship they once took for granted. Over time, small decisions, where to shop,